Hello, in this series of videos I do reviews of the work of artists that I find very inspiring, and today we are going to take a look at the work of Julie Blackmon. She is an American artist who now lives and works in Springfield, Missouri. She was born in 1966, and basically she's lived her entire life in the same town in small town America kind of setting. And what is interesting and what I find fascinating about her work is that she is able to reflect on that and actually find an inspiration in an everyday life. And I know how hard it is for an artist, as we always seek for something, extraordinary or out of ordinary that that will somehow inspire us. But to find actually an inspiration in something we see every day, it's a different story, it's a different approach, which makes actually an artist much stronger because uh, because most people don't see inspiration around themselves, or don't see the same lifestyle, for example, in the same way as you see it. So you have the power to actually show it to the rest of the world in a very interesting perspective. So let's take a look at Julie's work. So this is the series that is called Homegrown, and it starts with this absolutely funny shot of the cat in someone's garage and this naughty word written on the windows. I think it's really funny, and I don't know, maybe it's the cat's expression at the same time as all the other seemingly random elements around it. But I find it I don't know, so funny and so nice to look at, and so recognizable that it has happened to all of us when we suddenly walked onto a scene and saw this moment, and we thought, oh, I wish I could capture that because it's so funny. And all these posters of somebody campaigning for, I don't know, maybe protesting or for campaigning for candidates. It's like all these everyday objects that make our everyday life, they make this image so fascinating. And Julie, in her own words, says that it is an artist's responsibility to reflect on the times and culture that they are a part of. And I agree that this is very, very true. I always say that you have this sort of responsibility and you have the voice to actually talk about it, and you don't have to be really serious about it or super socially conscious about what you are expressing in your work. You can be very humorous and sarcastic even, but I think that will not only help you, become a responsible artist, but it will help the viewers connect with you more because you are more honest and you are together with them, right? So you are connected, and that's very important. So that you don't look at the same issues that they're living in. You don't look at it as something artificially created, but you're just a part of the same world. And I think it's really important for the viewers to understand. Let's take a look at her other work. And I think when you look at all these compositions and all these little scenes of everyday life in a small town, you can see the references from different periods of art, starting from Dutch and Flemish painters, and then going into um, Impressionists, and going into the 20th century artists like Norman Rockwell and Edward Hopper, for example, and even Bartos. So she finds this inspiration in all periods of art, and you can see that in her work, but it's not directly replicated. It's just something that she uses as her inspiration. And she says, even in one of her interviews, that it's important to embrace your influences and then go on as an artist of your own, with your own voice, just recognizing what you've been influenced by, what is important to you, what is your message, what you are trying to bring across. And this is actually one of my favorite shots because, I mean, first of all, on a technical level, I can imagine how hard it is to construct a scene like that. But besides that, it's just so fascinating to look and study an expression of each kid, each child in this picture, and it's so recognizable on one hand, and it's so familiar, and you feel also as a part of them. You know, you are you feel, it feels like you're sitting together with them on that grass lawn and you're watching this movie that everyone knows as well. And it's this um, sort of dialogue of what's happening on the screen, and also kids being part of the scene of that movie, but also these kids on the outside, and you are looking at them as well. So it's like a third level of looking at the same scene, sort of. So it's very, very smartly constructed, and the message here, I mean, in all her images, this message of this domestic life, and you know, moms sort of dealing with this uncontrollable, children living their own life. And I think she even says that her work reflects this conflicting expectation of a woman in a child-centered culture. And mom's present a lot in her images, but in a very interesting, subtle way. You can see either a mom's hands painting her nails, or just legs showing somewhere in the corner. And I really like how she treats her compositions, how all these elements come in and out of the frame. And I like how she references all these different periods of art. For example, this one where kids are crossing the street, and it references the famous photograph of the Beatles crossing the street. You know, it's not only, you know, really long and really famous periods of art. It's something contemporary as well. And I think that makes her work really relatable and approachable. So this is, for example, the mom sitting in those chairs, and you know, maybe reading magazines or books, and going about their everyday life, drinking coffee, and meanwhile kids are doing their own thing. And I think she also said in one of her interviews that she really likes working with really young children, because under the age of 7, they're not so, they don't have such level of self-awareness. And I can also really relate to that, because it is always harder to photograph people who are very self-aware, and you can't make them look, you can't fully make them open up to the camera, and that makes your job harder as a photographer. So let me show you a couple more scenes, a couple more images that I find absolutely extraordinary. Like, for example, this one that makes this reference to Velasquez's work. And you can see definitely in the dress, in the lighting, in a darker environment, but at the same time Julie still makes it her own. You know, all these random kids going crazy, and cats and dogs running around, and all these elements going, again, like I said, in and out of the frame. It's so much fun, and it's also such a smart way to reference something that's so ingrained in our culture, but at the same time make it your own. Again, another fun, playful composition. I really like how she treats her composition, and sometimes there is not really one central element, and there's always so many layers to it, like I've already said. And I think the way she approaches her work is, she always makes notes on everyday life, and I think it's such a useful tip when you go around and you see things happening around you every day, to actually make notes and think, oh, actually this reminds me of Edward Hopper painting, for example, or Barthes painting, or I don't know, one of Impressionist paintings, and you think that is something that can inspire a whole story, and then you start constructing all the other elements. And she says that it's not easy, and sometimes she has to take 10 takes, 10 shots to find like one that will possibly work. And then she uses Photoshop to combine some elements, and she's totally fine with that because Photoshop helps actually to blur lines between photography and other forms of art. And I'm totally in support of that, because photography is another form of art, and it doesn't have to be photojournalism. It's absolutely true to life. And I think it's very it's what you make it. It's very your own, right? So you have to find your way of using it as an artist and help it find a way how it can help you express who you really are. And so I hope you find this work really inspiring and you can relate to some of the scenes. And please check out more of her series. They're absolutely amazing. And she also has a couple of books that I encourage you to check out. And she has exhibitions around the world. And if you ever come across, please definitely go and see them. I hope it was inspiring. Please like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support me, please also subscribe to my page on Patreon. And thank you for watching.